begin, we're going to interview people, and the idea is that we'll go in the order of the agenda, and committees, I think they already are on the agenda in gathered ways. So if people are not here, we'll move on to the next group to deal with. So I've got Ying McDonald and John Cooper. Are they both here? Would you please come on up, please? Sit either one you wish. I should also tell you, these microphones are for the television. They don't amplify your voice, so speak up. And what we normally do is each of us is a liaison for different committees. So as different committees come up, we will have the liaison give a few words about what the purpose of the committee is. For those of you, I hope, that attended town meeting in November, the committee is no longer called the Cable Television Committee, but is called the Community Media Committee. And its purpose is to advise the selectmen regarding the delivery of PEG, that's public educational governmental programming, to all Bedford residents and or persons affiliated with Bedford institutions, Bedford organizations, businesses, or agencies via cable, social media, and any other current and emerging technologies and media. So welcome. We have, that were given to us, resumes for, or not resumes, but forms that you filled out for an application for this position. And so I'd like to open it up to my fellow selectmen to ask questions, if you have any.
Maybe they could make some introductory statement first about their
Sure.
interest.
Yeah, if you could just say each of you say a few words of why you're interested in serving on the committee, that would be really helpful.
I am
place to
sorry, I
start.
jumped to the next level before we went there. Yes, please do. Either one.
All right. My name is Ying McDonald. I live in Bedford for about 11 years here. I have a daughter, 8 years old. She's coming to 9 years old soon. And being honest to you, I love to live in Bedford, and I satisfied with we are having a very nice town, and I want to even see it's even better. That's why I like to volunteer to join the committee. And my professional job is quality assurance in a software company. And for the cable television committee, soon will be community media committee. I know we are going to have a new license renewal coming on, and we also have going to have a performance review for the BCAT and the Comcast Verizon on the next 2019 May. I think for my professional career, I am normally verification, validation about all those software. I can apply for this renew the contract. I can apply to verify the document inventory and make sure the number is synced between the expect and the actual result. Because I know we also see the inflow and an outflow of the cable television revenue. So that's a brief introduction of why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And John?
I'm John Cooper, and I was volunteering at the Bedford Depot Park when Jim Shea suggested that I apply for this position to be a volunteer. I did go to the last meeting, and it was interesting, but that's a technological position. I was listening to people going over money and all this other stuff with the television. Yeah, it's interesting. Even if I don't get the job, it's still interesting. I'm retired, so I do have time. But I'm not saying anymore.
Thank you.
So any selectmen care to ask questions?
Well, I have a question for each one of you, and I just wondered if either of you has been monitoring the news about the changes that the Federal Communications Commission is considering that would change the way that community media or local cable would be funded, and if you were at all familiar with the concerns of the town about that, just in terms of changes that might affect our ability to pay for the cable TV.
I do recall Jim mentioned that he's going, the committee is interested to explore the feasibility of the town directly operating its Comcast and the Verizon X channel when the contract of Big Cat expire in June 2020. I think it could be part of what you all said they're going to be changed. So this will be under discussion, and I know every month the committee will meet and have an agenda to keep going on with the topic you mentioned.
I have not heard anything on it, other than the town is considering changes in how it runs the cable television to present the information to the town.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, that was my question.
Okay. Did both of you attend the November town meeting that occurred just a month ago?
I did not.
You did not?
November, I was out for vacation, so I didn't go to the town meeting, but I went to the December 7th, the cable television committee meeting.
Okay. There was a warrant article that changed the name of the committee, as you may have heard me mention, from Cable Television Committee to Community Media, which was, the purpose of which was to expand the charter of the Cable Committee, of the Community Media Committee, to include other types of presentation. Currently, Bedford TV broadcasts what it records both on cable television and on YouTube. And there are other forms of media that are coming down the pike. And I want to make sure you understand that the committee is an advisory committee, which means we're looking for you to tell us what you think should happen and why you think it should happen. And so that includes negotiating with the providers, Verizon and Comcast. But it also involves, as you heard from Margot, the issue of how much money is available to do these things, whether the budget that's being proposed is a reasonable one, and how we can get what we put on television, which we think leads to clarity for transparency for town government to a wider group than just cable subscribers, because that's less than 100% of the town by a long shot. Do you have any thoughts as I tell you all that about?
I do heard from Jim. This traditional TV channel is going to be slightly changed in the future, and we are thinking for the media side. I don't know which media are going to be chosen, but normally people use YouTube. You can freely upload your video clip, and also you could use Instagram or Facebook. But this is the thinking, and I know they are not identified which media to use yet, but this is the trend for future.
And does it bother you to go that way?
No, it doesn't. I like the I like the idea. Doesn't bother me at all.
Any thoughts, John?
Sheesh. I think it's a great idea that the town is actually presenting information to the residents. I always skip those channels, in honesty. I don't generally watch them, because I'm into the entertainment.
You don't watch the Wrestling Connection?
Government is, so I missed most of that.
Thank you. Mike or Ed?
Mr. Cooper, a little later, we're scheduled to talk again
Right.
with you about your interest in the Patriotic Holidays Committee.
Right.
If we said to you, pick one of these two, which one would you prefer?
I think I'd probably go with the Patriotic Celebrations Committee.
Yeah, that's, I was just looking at some of the things that you're involved with, and I thought you might say that.
Well, yeah, I'm being active in the VFW
Yeah.
and the American Legion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything, Ed?
No.
Any other questions or concerns?
No, I just want to thank both of you for your willingness to volunteer for the town. We really rely on, I always say it's our DIY government, people coming forward to offer their time and their talents to the town. It's much appreciated, and all of you in the audience who I know are here for appointment interviews feel the same way.
Before we go on to anything else, I will repeat this as needed, but you will be dealing with the public if you are appointed to this position or another position. And by the way, if not this position, we hope that you will continue to make yourself available to other committees, even if it is not this one. You will be asked to take an ethics test online. You cannot fail it because it leads you through the process, and if you select the wrong answer, it says no, try again, and eventually you get through the whole thing. It's not a long test. Also, I'd remind you about the fact that we all operate under what's called the open meeting law, which requires that you not have discussions about opinions about things that would come before the committee without doing that in open session. You can send facts to each other, but and you can certainly talk about meeting times and things that you think should go on the agenda, but you can't send an email that says, gee, I don't think we should vote for X, Y, or Z, or this is a bad idea. And then finally, one of the very important things is what's called civil discourse. You will find those words in the back of your warrant every town meeting. You will be talking to the public, and sometimes emotions get heated, and it is very, very important that no matter how heated the emotions get, that you stay calm and be the adult in the room and keep the conversation going at an appropriate level and not get confrontational. It helps ever so much to make things work out far better. Having said that, is it the pleasure of the selectmen to vote now, or?
I think we have so many appointment interviews that
We'll do it later
we'll
then?
do it later, and
So
so
we'll be in touch with you, but don't you go away, because there's
Right.
another
one.
hearing.
So whoever is appointed for any of these committees, if you're appointed, you'll be notified by the town manager's office and then have to come to get sworn in at town hall before you can be part of official part of a
Which
committee.
is a simple process.
Thank
Sign a piece of paper. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
John, you might as well stay.
Yeah,
Am I up next?
You're up next with
You're up
Barbara.
next. We have the Patriotic Holiday Committee. I don't think we have a liaison to that, do we? Oh, we do. I forgot.
since its inception.
Since its inception, that's true, now that you mention it.
Thanks. To talk about the Patriotic Holiday Committee, I got to go back a few decades to the 60s and 70s when Bedford had something called the Town Public Ceremonies Committee. And the agenda was basically Bedford Day, Memorial Day, and the 4th of July, working 4th of July with the Bedford Minutemen. As Bedford Day grew and became more under the direction of the professional staff at the Recreation Department, simultaneously the Memorial Day commemoration started to shrink along with 4th of July, and the Public Ceremonies Committee was terminated as a standing committee of the town. But it left a vacuum for patriotic holidays, and through the efforts of some citizens and selectmen several years ago, the committee was established specifically to work with Memorial Day and Veterans Day observances. And we have talked some about restoring something for the 4th of July. The committee takes special care to plan and execute the parade and ceremonies for these 2 days to make them especially meaningful, including parade components, lineup of speakers, involvement of the veterans groups, and the Air Force Base, the Veterans Hospital. Bedford has a unique military culture of almost any place you'll find, and the committee is well structured to tap into all the different elements of that. I think that pretty much tells the story.
So the same thing applies once again. Would you please give us some thoughts about why you'd like to do this? Ms. Bircher, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I've been involved with the patriotic holiday since my husband's chair of it, so I don't know if that affects anything, but I get volunteered for a lot of things anyhow with the patriotic holiday committee, so I take the pictures, I help with the publicity, I drive the Grand Marshal, so I might as well join the committee and add some value by being on the committee and able to provide some input and all that more.
Sir, John.
Okay, I have participated in some of these ceremonies through the American Legion and my association with Gerald Cartman, who's also on the committee. He has indicated that he will be retiring sometime again in the future, and has been suggesting to me that I apply for one of these positions. So, I've participated, I've done mostly like fill-in chaplain at the Memorial Day and the Veterans Day programs. And I've also participated at the Legion with the flag retirement program. VFW doesn't do a whole lot, so I can't really speak to that. So my involvement is mostly with the American Legion. Just doing those things. And I'd like to put my 2 cents in when I guess when it comes up to doing something.
Thank you.
Of course.
Questions? Mike?
So I saw Jerry last week. He's only 82, so
Yeah. Going on 83 or
oh, yeah.
90 or
He's still one of the best dancers that you'll find. But he did have a nasty fall recently. Although he seems to be on the mend, it certainly would make sense to have a succession on the committee of someone representing the Legion. But we can't fire him. Did he give you any kind of a timetable?
future.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Joe Piantadosi has indicated that Jerry, probably I can give him notice with the time and date, but Jerry hasn't decided yet.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who goes to all their meetings, I would hope you'll just start attending, whether or not you get the appointment, because if we're going to wait for him to retire, you'll be able to hit the ground running at that point. I wanted to mention something else that's coming up. One of the things that the selectmen will be addressing in the near future is a special committee that will be starting to look into the town's 300th birthday, which is coming up in 11 years. Sounds like a long time, but one of the things we might want to do is squirrel away a little money every year so we can have a decent sized party in 2019. And I think we'll be looking for representation from veterans groups on that special committee as well, although we haven't really put out a call for that yet. Meanwhile, you know, it certainly makes sense to me to have continuity with the Legion, and of course we know Barbara's involvement since day one. So it's I hope that we can come away with, in a win-win somehow.
Sure. I have no problems with attending the meetings, as long as I remember when they're gonna be.
Yeah. I don't
sure
think
they
we
can
can
put you on
appoint it
the list.
provisionally, but I think it would be understood that you would be the successor.
I'll continue to help anyhow, whether I'm, so,
Yeah.
I'll go to the meetings and
Same
I'll.
thing.
Other questions, concerns? We appreciate very much, you heard my speech earlier, so I won't waste your time by going through it. And thank you for volunteering, and as I always say, if not for this committee, please raise your hand for others. Thank you again.
Thank you both.
We will vote later and you will here. Next group, next actually single person is Mr. Santiago for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Is he here?
I don't think he's
I
here.
don't believe he's here.
No.
Mr. Kinzer's back there, though. We can-
Thomas Kinzer for Council on Aging.
Come back to bicycle advisory.
Welcome.
Thank you.
As the person who goes from a selectman to work with the COA, I will tell you what you probably ought to know, but the COA's purpose is to provide services, programs, and activities to maintain and increase the independence and quality of life of Bedford seniors. And the COA promotes an independent, multi-generational community and encourages all seniors to get involved with a wide range of available programs and activities. As I said, you probably know that. Would you care to give us a few words about why you want to do this?
Well, I could give you essentially the same answer I gave, I guess it was back in '99 when I first went to caucus to try to run for the Board of Health. I was on that for 18 years, co-chaired it for 15. And my reason for wanting to do that was simply that we loved the town, and I wanted to give something back to the town. And so I took on that responsibility, and having retired from it, I find that I miss it. Second reason is that, to some reasonable extent anyway, I'm aging successfully, I hope, and it seems appropriate to try to work with that kind of function in this town. I think I can be of help to the board and the council on aging itself, and to the senior citizens, fellow senior citizens of the town of Bedford.
Thank you. Any questions?
I would just ask, I know, you having come from the Board of Health perspective, are sort of aware of how different boards work together, and we try to collaborate on things that can have a positive impact on the quality of life for people in general and seniors in particular. Just wondering if you familiarized yourself at all with any of the age-friendly community issues or the initiatives that we're trying to coordinate across, let's say, planning, zoning, Board of Health, Council on Aging, if you have any thoughts about any of that.
Well, certainly there are a number of things that intersect between the Board of Health and the Council on Aging. The nurse gives presentations on a number of topics, especially things like falls prevention and balance, working on balance and all that sort of thing. I know that transportation for seniors is a current, very hot topic, and informal discussions anyway indicate that that might be an area where the board would be interested in having you participate in it. I know that the town is involved in a lot of transportation-related stuff, and some of it doesn't look so positive in terms of continuing things like the BLT, which I think is a very important function in the town, and I think we need to find out a way to continue something like that. I reviewed the the report that was done by consultants on a bunch of issues for seniors in the town, and found a number of interesting things in it. Obviously, the big issues are things like housing. How in the world can I stay in this town? How can I live in this town? How can I stay in this town? How can I get around this town if I can't drive anymore? How can I live safely? And those are all issues that I think I can contribute toward, and I would like to have a chance to do that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I think it would, I'm so glad that you're stepping forward for this, because it's, your departure from the Board of Health leaves a vacuum. We want to keep you on board.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll say the same thing. Welcome back.
As I came in, Ed was walking behind me and said, "I'm here to tackle Mr. Kinzer."
I'm being kind right now.
Among all the other issues that you just mentioned, there's actually a relatively interesting one, and that is how do we involve, there seems to be sort of two groups of seniors. There are ones who are aging considerably and getting up there, and then there are the ones you and I are in. You said hopefully the younger seniors,
We
and
hope will last forever.
we like to believe that
The
anyway.
line is always 1 year older than wherever you are.
And that group has not become active in the council. They still have apparently a lot of outside energy and activities. And so one of the things facing the COA is what we can do to encourage them to not see the COA as something for people who have moved considerably on. And I'm not asking you to respond to that. I'm just pointing out that this will be a challenge, assuming you are being appointed, and your thoughts and consideration of that issue, I'm sure will be gratefully accepted. You did hear my, any other questions or concern? We do thank you so for volunteering. I don't know how many openings there are. Is it just one?
It's just one.
Just one, which is,
I was just going to suggest that since we want to have all these interviews, we could just move all of our selections at the end. But
yes.
that would be the
I
most
wasn't
efficient.
planning to
Oh,
do it.
okay.
No, I was following your original suggestion. I just want to say you did hear my comments about ethics tests, the open meeting law, et cetera, and the need to, of course, as Margaret pointed out, to, if you're appointed, to come in and sign a piece of paper for the clerk. We, as always, thank you for your service, and particularly for all those long years of service, and look forward to seeing you. We'll be voting later in the meeting.
Okay,
So we'll get back to you.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Mr. Santiago now.
Did Mr. Santiago come in?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you come down and join us, please?
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
How's the traffic on Great Road?
Not good.
This is why he's here for the bicycle advisory.
That's why you're here for the bicycle. I believe you must be.
No,
it's
it's
me.
it's
Ed.
Ed.
It's me.
Excuse me.
All things bike. Essentially, that's what it comes down to, and what the bike committee is supposed to do is advise the selectmen on the new rules that are coming into place, advise the Transportation Advisory Committee, and work with the DPW as they go out and mark the roads, and what the sharrows are supposed to mean, what the new legislation is. So, and the other piece to it is education. Education in the schools, so that's kind of what the bike committee is responsible for.
Sounds great.
So we usually start out asking an applicant why they want to do this.
Yeah, well, I was, let's see, so first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come and say hello. My name is Omar Santiago, and live in 16 Madawaska Street. So if I must be candid, I think that the reason why, the initial reason why I was joining is my wife is actually a member of the school board, school committee, and she mentioned to me, Omar, you should look into opportunities for volunteering in the town as well and get involved from that standpoint. And I'm consider myself a very active rider of bicycles. I commute normally to work, and I actually work in Boston, so it's a pretty long commute. So I do enjoy doing that. I don't do it every day, but I do try to do that at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I also bike on the weekends, so I'm very much into that. And can certainly, and I see the town really not only embracing the concept of biking, but also growing in that, in its utilization of bicycles and other means of transportation outside of just regular motor vehicles. And I found all that exciting. It's like a changing world from that standpoint. I really see us, even 5 years from now, kind of looking very differently at our modes of transportation. And it seems like an exciting part to be a part of, and if I can lend a small voice into that group and into that decision making, I think that would be really cool to have that opportunity.
Thank you. Questions, thoughts?
Well, my spouse also bikes to Boston on a regular basis, year round. And I don't know if you saw in the news on the Boston Globe past couple of days, there's been a little bit of a controversy over the Longfellow Bridge. He happens to bike over the Longfellow Bridge to get to work, about whether or not to remove the sheltered bike lane that goes across it to facilitate snow plowing. So I guess I just wonder if you're thinking about our Great Road and the amount of width that we have, and we're looking for ways to maybe have more bicycle accommodation either on the road or next to the road. Wonder if you've familiarized yourself at all with some of the work that the Bicycle Advisory Committee has already done about on-road sheltered bike lanes, how you feel about them. I know some cyclists have strong opinions about whether or not they'd rather be on a road or on a path, especially in the wintertime. If you do bicycle during the less pleasant weather, just wondering sort of your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so first of all, so I do not cycle during the winter time. That's
Okay.
usually when I do take some time. I think that, so I have actually seen a map of the town at our last bicycle committee meeting, and when they were highlighting areas of concern. And a lot of the areas of concern for us as bicyclists has to do obviously with the amount, not only with the amount of traffic, but how wide is the road. And if you, for example, there on Great Road, there are portions of that road that are not necessarily that comfortable, and the speed limit in some sections goes all the way up to 40 miles per hour. So if you're trying to ride your bike, it's a very small shoulder to have to work on. So that's one area that we need to be mindful of. The second area is the type of rider that we're going to be dealing with. I mean, I have 2 daughters, and I would not go with my 2 daughters in the middle of Great Road with my bike. I would go by myself and not necessarily with a family. So what are we trying, what is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? So, whether, and try to have that balance of saying, okay, well, we need to provide a safe venue for transportation for commuters like myself, but also, what's the right balance and the right level of safety and comfort for families, or children that are trying to go to school on bikes, which I would strongly encourage and to figure out a way to do that. So with all of these, where do we fit? What is the right accommodation? Is the right accommodation a full lane for bicyclists that that is cordoned off by plastic barriers like some streets in Cambridge have, or is it more of just the white lines, or even the green, the kind of middle of the road green lane that is on either side of the street, what have you? And I think it's going to be a combination of these techniques and these technologies to make it all work. There's going to be areas of the street where perhaps there is a suitable sidewalk that is pretty wide, that perhaps children can take that. On those sections, perhaps a green lane that is clearly demarcated might be enough, you know, to provide a good means of transportation for the team. In other areas where you really can't create such a sidewalk, then a more protected lane might make sense. You know, in such a busy road as Great Road, it may make sense in some sections that it might be that. So I guess to answer your question, I guess it would be depends on the locations, you know, the types of families that are going to be there, the type of traffic patterns that is going to ensue, and then from there to take the best decision there.
Thank you.
Those were, your answers have all been so thoughtful, and especially your introduction, and I just think we're fortunate that that you want to invest some time in this important committee, and I think that geography is significant too, and in recent years the committee has sort of been concentrated in one corner, and you're in another geographical location, get a different perspective, especially since you must pick up the Minuteman where off Hartwell Avenue when you, so that in itself is probably an adventure, but we can't help them out. So I'm just glad that that this is something that you're going to be available for. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the comment. If I may add, I mean, it's an interesting neighborhood where I live because, you know, at least for me personally, if at all possible, you know, I'd like to see if there's a possibility of safe travel for children from that section, those neighborhoods, all the way to safe passages for school. That, you know, during the days that we say, oh, we're going to promote Bike to School Day, you know, can we actually create safe passage for our children, you know, to all of these schools that are so far on the other side of town? There are areas right now where the answer, unfortunately, is no. Based on what I've seen, I would go no. You get off on your bike and you walk the sidewalk till you get to the safe place, then you can ride it on. So it would be great to go into experiments and see, okay, well, what can work? You know, maybe we can pilot something in some area of town, see how that works, study its impacts, and then kind of learn from that and then move on. So I think there's opportunities, for that area of town.
Interesting thought. Other comments? You weren't here earlier, so I owe you a quickie speech, which we give to everybody. You'll be asked if you're appointed to take an ethics test online. You cannot fail it because it leads you through step by step, and if you give a wrong answer, it leads you to the right one, and ultimately you will have heard all the right answers and you will have clicked all the right boxes. And then you need to take the results of that to town clerk to let her, so we know that you took the test. Also, there is a thing in town and across the whole state called the open meeting law. And this requires that anything that is discussed that is calls for opinions is done in an open session in a announced meeting. And that therefore, if you are communicating with your fellow members of the committee, you can transmit facts, you can articles from newspapers, anything but not opinions, not personal opinions. You can't discuss the issue until you're in the open meeting. And then finally, we have a requirement in town that the selectmen are very supportive of and almost insistent on, and that's civil discourse. You'll be talking to the public on occasion, and sometimes opinions get heated, and sometimes they get contentious, and we ask that you remain civil and in control, and as I said earlier, the adult in the room, and keep it at that level, because it doesn't help anything if people are getting extremely emotional about things. So those are the three caveats and requests for improvement in town.
Oh, and if you are appointed, which I'd imagine you would be since you're the one person for that spot. You'll receive a notification from the town manager's office. You'll have to come and get sworn in before you can officially take part in the committee.
And we'll be voting later this evening, and you'll be hearing from the town by note our actions. So thank you so much for volunteering.
Yep.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate for the opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Happy holidays.
You too, thank you.
The next committee on our agenda is the Energy and Sustainability Committee, Emily Prince and William Sales. And as they say in a morning TV show, come on down.
So this one's mine. So we start with a little liaison description of the committee. And I know, Emily, you've attended a committee meeting, and so you're probably already familiar with the charge, which is to provide advice to the selectmen on our energy reduction goals. The committee was originally founded in order for us to become a green community, which we accomplished in 2011, and at that time it was called the Energy Task Force. We've since transitioned it to a committee and added the word sustainability to reflect a broader perspective on sustainable activities within the town beyond just the municipal reduction in municipal energy consumption. So we've done a solarized program in 2013, 2014 to encourage people to put solar panels on their roofs. We have worked on promoting and bringing the town along on our community choice aggregation project, which is in progress, and also supported the recent net zero planning, which is underway. And again, I know Emily is familiar with that, to set some bold energy reduction goals in line with the Global Warming Solutions Act, which requires the state to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. And then finally, just recently, we've added some sustainability activities relative to composting and the reduction of food waste and changing our disposal habits having to do with trash and recycling. So that's an overview of the committee. And as we do generally, we just ask each one of you to give us a little idea of why you're interested in serving.
As you know, I'm a relatively new resident to Bedford. I've been here 2 years, and over this time I've been trying to determine how I can contribute and become part of the community from the local government perspective. Last year at town meeting, when the net zero funding article passed, I was very excited and energized by that, which led me to join Mothers Out Front. So over the past year, I've been working with Mothers Out Front on the community outreach for the home energy assessments. And I've really enjoyed that, but also wanted to get more involved in local government. From there, after applying to this committee, I started attending the meetings. I believe September was my first meeting, and was helping Mr. Bostwick with some of the outreach to get the Net Zero Advisory Council underway. So I helped communicate with some of the business liaisons to get them to attend the advisory council meetings, which started, I guess the first one was Halloween. So since then, I've been working with Margot and Dan Bostwick on the council. I've also been coordinating the residential working group committee. So that involves a group of architects, real estate agents, and builders in town, trying to understand how we can reduce the energy use among residential buildings and also convert to renewable energy at the same time. So I've really enjoyed this work, and I look forward to continuing that and serving the town to reach the goal of the 80% reduction in renewables by 2050.
Thank you. And
Similarly, I'm also a new resident. I've been here for 3-4 months now. Which was moved, and I also want to be part of the town and see what we can do to help out. So I guess I'll start with my background. I'm mechanical engineering degree by background, working in Mass Maritime, and I work in commercial construction right now, and working with a lot of developers in the area in Bedford, particularly Bedford, Cambridge, and a lot of the new development projects that are going on are all requiring, the developers are actually catching on it. They're getting, there is some upfront cost, but they understand that this movement is actually benefiting them. So we've got a lot of experience working with people trying to put together the costing for it. So budgeting and constructability is how do you get your facilities more in line with what their budget costs are, how they can make investments back. So I've been on the financial side and the construction side, all that for commercial and small residential, not much. I put heat pumps in my house, so I guess it's been one step of residential upgrades. But I'm fully, I came from Cambridge, and to your point of the composting, and there's other ways of getting the net zero in the waste. Like I thought that was a great, they had a really strong program there, and that experience I had with those guys was, I thought was helpful. I'm fully behind the energy sustainability movement. I believe in it. I think it's a solid, I believe what they're pitching. Like I said, kids are pitching, but it's understanding the goal of reducing waste and energy is important. So, and it's another way to get involved in town. So I think just my background history of how things are built and constructed and how to get, another part I thought was interesting is like, it took me a bit of effort when I renovated my house recently is to understand all how you can save money, how, with the heat pump, the return on, that would be a nice way of kind of helping the town member understand, like, you can do this, maybe setting up a program to help them become more confident with getting the programs in place and getting the cost back. I thought it was a bit of an arduous process that I went through. I did get some rebates back, but maybe streamlining that, helping the residents work with that so they can understand that and get the benefit from it as well. So I just want to get involved, and I thought this would be a decent opportunity, different kind of perspective of the constructability and understanding costs impacts is kind of a strength of mine. Propose.
Thank you. Comments? Questions?
I want to ask William, so both candidates are recently arrived, and Emily's been involved with the committee in a peripheral way, with Mothers Up Front and in other, I guess, doing a lot of grunt work really when it comes down to in preparing for net zero. So I want to ask William, because it sounds like you have a lot to offer too, and we only have one vacancy. Is this something you would consider being involved with on the perimeter? I mean, without a formal appointment, but as a resource. I'm not sure who else on the task force can provide the kind of expertise in commercial development. I mean, Margot knows better than me in terms of what individual expertise is concerned, but it sounds like you have an area of experience that would be valuable, and I wouldn't want to waste any of the talent that's here.
If that's a question.
Well, I guess
You'll get used to it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to co-chair this because it does, from your description and my description, it does seem like we would be in a good joint. Both resources would be pretty helpful if that's an option. I'm happy.
I mean, we can't split it, but we don't want to lose either one.
Well, what I was actually going to suggest is that one activity that would benefit from some of your perspective might be working with one of the working groups for the net zero project, because we're trying to bring in a variety of stakeholders with different experiences, and either on the commercial side or on the residential side, if that would be something that you'd be interested in, you could very easily get roped into that. And the thought behind that is to make sure that as we move forward with any proposals that come out of the net zero consultants, that they have been looked at and vetted and pondered by people who would be directly impacted or who would have some expertise to share. So I would just offer that as an opportunity, because I think we have an old questionnaire from when you may have applied for a different committee, but have you been to an energy task force meeting yet? Not yet. Okay. So the net zero stuff could be your gateway. You could start there, and then we do have openings fairly regularly. So if it intrigued you and interested you, you could sure, if you don't wind up being chosen for this appointment at this point, if this is something that interests you, we'd love to have the participation of citizens coming to our meetings. Happens quite often, actually.
Yeah, no, it's a very humble approach. I'd be happy to help in that respect or supplement what Emily's doing here. I mean, my company has a energy and sustainability division, so I've got a lot of resources I can draw upon. One of my best friends is the Green Building Council leader, needs to go out there, so I can help with that and bring it in. I'm happy to supplement. I don't need to be the leader. I can be an assistant or whatever.
I would happy to send you an invite to the next commercial working group meeting.
No, that'd be great.
Excellent.
Any other comments? I want to thank you both for volunteering. You make it a hard choice.
Yeah.
You heard the comments about the ethics test and the open meeting law and the civil discourse and the need, as Margaret has pointed out, to whoever's appointed to come to the clerk and sign in. We'll get back to you very shortly, I promise you.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll vote later this evening. So thank you for coming.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you.
Next interview on our agenda is Joe Mazzio for the Trails Committee. Come on down, Joe. By now, it's all becoming very routine.
What is it you want?
I want to know why the heck you're sitting there.
Well, actually, I got involved with the Trails Committee when I was walking a wide green trail with one of the committee members on the golf course. And I was looking for opportunities to volunteer in town. I volunteer once a month at the VA hospital. So I was looking for something a little more active and activity-wise. And so I started attending their meetings and helping out, doing odds and ends, about bridge repair and cutting up flow downs and things like that. And plus I've been using the trails for years and years, and really enjoyed them. The dog makes me get out in the afternoons and some exercise. And I've always been an outdoor person. And I enjoy activities, working with my hands, and I was a safety officer with the National Park Service team that responded to hurricanes. So I did inspections on trails before we could open those up to the public. So things just kind of fall into place to work with the Trails Committee.
I, of course, skipped asking any liaison to make a presentation, but
I think Mr. Mazzeo is way ahead of us. Just professionally speaking, I have to say I am so appreciative of the folks who volunteer and are the stewards of our conservation land and do the trail clearing and make those big tree branches disappear. It's like magic sometimes. You see that something has fallen, and the next time you come back, it's gone. And I know it's not magic. I realize that there are lots of eyes and chainsaws that are looking out for us. So I just thank you for being willing to put your personal and professional experience to use on behalf of the town.
I'm sort of reluctant to go here, but I'm looking at your questionnaire, and I note that on there you say you've been in town for 12 years, and then it says, have you attended town meetings? And that says no. And
I can say yes now. I attended the special town meeting.
Phew, that was close.
thank you. That was the right answer. I assume that life gets in the way of getting to evening meetings. Will that be the case going forward for the Trails Committee?
Yes, yeah.
No, I mean, will you have problems making it to evening meetings of the Trails Committee?
Oh, no. The only time I do is if I'm on a fire assignment out west somewhere. But that's,
So you're still on call for that kind of thing?
I still
Huh.
make myself available, call when needed.
So, but strictly within the national parks?
Whoever, I make myself available, and I could go anywhere in the country
Yeah.
from any agency.
Were you involved with any of the recent disasters in
Yeah.
California?
August, California fires in Reading.
Uh-huh.
I go out as a public information officer. officer, so I deal with the ethics things, and having worked for the government, I'm used to all.
You know the drill, as they say.
You didn't grow up here, or-
I grew up in Concord.
yeah, because
Excuse me, West Concord.
Yeah, let's be
Really,
accurate.
that's really far
Yes.
away.
Other thoughts? Well, I agree with Margaret, you sound quite knowledgeable, and your background certainly is very interesting. We thank you for volunteering. I'm glad you made it to town meeting, and we'll be back to you shortly. And again, as you said a few moments ago, you're familiar with all of the things I talked about, so again, thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
I need Mr. Barberhen for Land Acquisition Committee. Welcome. Now I'm not going to ask you that question. I'm going to ask my liaison to the Land Acquisition Committee to say a few words.
It's Caroline.
Caroline.
Caroline, she's
Remote
not here.
participant.
That was a beautiful segue from me. But obviously, it is a matter of having an advisory committee who is keeping an eye on the available land in town and helping make a list of potential acquisitions, and then also helping in potential negotiations with the landowner. So now I guess I will ask you, why would you like to be on that committee?
I've been interested in Land Acquisition Committee for many years, chairman of the Trails Committee and land steward, and also on the Farmland Committee. So my time in the woods and lands around Bedford is many and varied. Several years ago, when we clarified the charter for the Trails Committee, we put the selectmen, put the responsibility of easements on land acquisition instead of trails or any other committee. So I stepped back a little bit, but it seems like they need me and I have time, so here I am.
Do you, I'm jumping right in ahead of everybody, do you have any concerns about buying property that has buildings on it? For instance, the VFW property is probably going to become available momentarily, and
Not at all. My focus is on, my personal focus is on conservation, but buildings are required. For instance, the Trails Committee stores their bog bridges in the VA garage, which is fairly dilapidated and shared with the people who paint things on the ground.
thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Other thoughts?
No, I'm just happy that this is a priority for you. As you said, it's become a diminishing resource. Whether it's trails or public facilities, it's so important to be able to screen these opportunities. We may not have any again, so thank you for stepping forward on it.
I have a question. I saw that you're a steward of the Landau Farm area. Just wondering if you have any thoughts about that particular parcel. I know there's a group of concerned abutters who are looking at it, trying to think about potential ways to perhaps have some trail signs and to highlight the value of that particular piece of upland property to the community, both as a bit of a transportation asset to be able to walk from one neighborhood of town to another, but then also just as an unusual piece of open space. So I just wondered if you were aware of those activities and had any thoughts about them.
I'm aware of them. I've met with them at least on one occasion. And I've worked with or discussed some of the opportunities with the DPW, for instance, to improve the path between Doris Road and Fletcher, which is fairly wet and has been chewed up by the latest lawn mowing activity. So it's not very suitable for children to ride their bicycles anymore. As a property, I'd love to see it as like a homestead park, because it's deserving of that in terms of its character, the terrain, the rocks, the interesting trees that are there, the different meadows. It's got some history. It could very easily be highlighted in sort of a a crown jewel in the town center.
Thank you. I am very fond of that particular piece of property myself, but you speak of it like very poetically, so I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Any other concerns, thoughts? You have been sitting here while I read the list of things that you'd have to do. I believe there's one opening. We don't, actually, information isn't clear, but I assume there's at least one opening. And enthusiasm like yours is always appreciated. As I said, we'll be voting later, and we will get back to you. And assuming you're appointed, please, A, take the ethics test, and B, report to the town clerk before the next meeting so you can be sworn in and be a legitimate member of the committee. Thank you for your patience in sitting here all this time.
Thank you for listening.
And now, not last and not least, Dawn, would you come on down? We want to talk about Transportation Advisory Committee. Should I resist the pun about it being a tacky committee?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll resist it.
Okay.
As long as nothing is shot
We
at
almost
Dawn,
got
I'm
through. So I'm the liaison, as you know, because I've seen you now at many Transportation Advisory Committee meetings, and I appreciate your forbearance as we've worked our way through this appointment process, because I know you have a longstanding interest in being on the committee. So as you know, the Transportation Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the selectmen for a variety of different transportation-related activities, be they sidewalks, intersection improvements, areas of interest for improving bicycle accommodation, helped us with our complete streets policy, and also with our neighborhood cut-through traffic calming draft policy. And I know you live in such a neighborhood, so I'm sure that you appreciate that. So I would ask, you can obviously speak to your interest in being on the committee. I would just point out that you may not be aware there are actually two openings with different term endings. One which would need to be renewed almost immediately, it's through June 30th, 2019, and the other one through June 2021. And if you would like to say if you have a preference, we'd be happy to point you to whichever one.
Well, I am honestly happy to serve in whichever capacity meets the requirements of the committee and the selectmen better. If there's a pressing reason why the one expiring soon should be filled, that's fine. I'm happy to go through the process again if that's what it takes. I don't have a preference, so I will take it under advisement.
Okay. So then if you just say a few words about why you're interested in serving on the committee and your background.
Sure. The interest is basically two-pronged. One is I've worked in the transportation industry since the late 80s. I've primarily at the national level. I am currently a federal employee in the Department of Transportation, and I've been one for about 10 years now, and before that I was a contractor for 8 years. So consequently, most of my background and experience is more at the national level and more at a research capacity, as well as a technical and policy analysis is what I generally do. I'm not a transportation planner. I've never been involved in nuts and bolts and streets kind of applications. That said, it's nice to see the other end of the work, quite frankly. It's nice to see the transportation policies and concerns and focus that begins at the local level, that percolates up, decisions get made, and then gets applied down at the local level. So I think it's, I don't need to tell anybody here that transportation is changing dramatically with the advent of all kinds of intelligent vehicle advances. My primary area of work right now is I work in the Technology, Innovation, and Policy Division at the Volpe Center in Cambridge, the U.S. Department of Transportation. And what that is that looks at emergent transportation systems and advanced technologies and how we're going to apply that to meet the transportation problems for the nation and for everyone. With that mindset, safety is always the top priority. Mobility is the next priority, environmental impact. And of course, as has been discussed throughout this evening, it's a public trust and, being mindful both of representing the public, representing the government to the public, as well as spending the public's money. Those things have to be taken into consideration. So as a transportation professional, I'm interested in the transportation problems of the town. And as a person who is, after 14 years of living here, finally getting sidewalks, I figure it's time to give back. And personally, I have been, I am a frequent attendee at town meetings. I think it's very important. I never knew what difference it made living in a well-run town until I moved to Bedford and lived in a well-run town.
Where'd you live before?
Arlington.
Careful, there's a lot of friends in Arlington that we respect. And
I loved living in Arlington. Loved living in Arlington. But it was a while ago, and it made a difference when I moved to Bedford. I never knew. And so out of the appreciation, honestly, for seeing local government in action and for having the opportunity to participate in town meeting, and feeling that if I have a skill set and there is a need, that there's a certain responsibility to step up. And at this point, my youngest child is 14. I have a little more bandwidth to attend evening meetings and a little bit less childcare needs. So I'm ready.
Terrific. You sparked a question in my mind with the area that you're working in your job. Have there been ideas percolating about dealing with transportation in communities the size of Bedford?
Not generally that I see. I don't generally see it at that level.
You're more global, I guess?
Global and national, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have, I work at a policy level frequently, and that's also in terms of like what kind of standards the government might need to put into place, what kind of requirements might need to be put into place, who is going to, be allowed to do what, where, that kind of an issue.
I often think of how different life would be if it had been the Eisenhower Interstate System and Wilson Park. Just those 3 words. Well, I won't ask you to solve that one now, but I'm sure it'll be coming alive. But again, I just wanted to express gratitude for your willingness to step forward in an area that's become so visible in recent years under Soraya's leadership and the investment of all the members. They've really become a force for good, and some of the toughest situations too. So I'm so glad that you'll bring your experience and your interest to that process.
Thank you. I've been in conversation with Soraya for quite a long time, and one of the things I think I really appreciate about Soraya, and one of the things I kind of felt that we bonded with, is her love of data. So that looking. Doing real analysis on the transportation issues that it's facing Bedford, and, how knowledgeable she was and how much work has been done. It was very impressive.
Anybody more? And you've sat through the speech at least 3 times, so I will not.
I've done more ethics training possibly than anyone else in this room.
You probably have. I bet you're very ethical.
Totally.
But we do thank you for, as you've heard, for volunteering, and after you've done all the things that I mentioned earlier, and we vote for you, be sure to take your piece of paper to the town clerk and make sure she knows what's going on.
All right.
So thank you so much for sitting here and going through this. We have a couple of options because we have at least 17 minutes before our agenda says we're starting.
we should just do it.
So let's go ahead and do it. That's what I was going to say. The question is, do we vote individually, or do you want to do it as a group? Personally, I think we should do it by the various committees, one at a time.
Sure, why don't we just start
So we'll
with
start with the,
cable?
Why don't you start with the unopposed?
all right, we'll start with the unopposed.
Maybe something will happen between.
Okay, so look, I'll move that the selectmen appoint Dawn LaFrance Linden as a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee for a term ending June 2021. Lock her in.
Second.
I have a second from Ed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried 4-0.
I move that the selectmen appoint Michael Barbahan as a member of the Land Acquisition Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Ed seconded that. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried 4-0.
Move that the selectmen appoint Joseph Mazzeo as a member of the Trails Committee, term ending June 30, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried 4-0.
Move selectmen appoint Thomas Kinzer as a member of the Council on Aging, term ending June 30th, 2020.
Second.
A second from Margot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 4-0.
The selectmen appoint Omar Santiago as a member of the Bicycle Advisory Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Ed is seconded that. All those, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 4-0.
That went well.
I guess now we're down to, well, there are two openings.
Cable,
Cable has two openings.
There's two openings on the Community Media Committee.
Community Committee. Well, it certainly seemed that Mr. Cooper might have had greater interest in serving on the Patriotic Holiday Committee. So, and I know there's only one opening on that one. So it might, although I know there are two openings and two candidates for the Community Media, it seemed like he was a better fit for Patriotic Holiday, and I think he even expressed that himself. So I would be happy to move to appoint John Cooper as a member of the Patriotic Holiday Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2019.
Do I have a second for that? Or is there discussion?
We can second it and then discuss it.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Mike has seconded.
I'm just wondering whether it would make as much sense to appoint Barbara, who's already very much involved also, and with the understanding that John will be filling the shoes of Jerry Hartman, who's been the American Legion representative on the committee since its inception, and who's apparently informed John that he'll be stepping down soon. Of course, that doesn't mean he will, but
I mean, we can always cross that bridge when we come to it. I mean, I feel, you know, Barbara is a very involved, and she takes beautiful pictures at Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and I'm sure she'd continue to be involved. I guess I see it either way.
the other thing is there's only one female member of the committee as currently constituted.
I got the impression either one of them would attend the committee meetings, and not just one would have voting rights and one wouldn't.
And I was also, I mean, I think, Mike, to your point, the 300th is a committee that has no members yet, and perhaps we might recruit Barbara to be the inaugural member of the 300th.
Yeah, that would.
Which I think would be a
that would be a big asset.
Yeah, I think she'd be great on that.
So am I hearing that Barbara, that we might want to vote to form that committee maybe at our next meeting, and
Well, didn't we approve a charge?
We approved a charge some time ago, I believe, but
We haven't gotten a crop of volunteers.
we've never. I don't think they've really
but
advertised.
maybe she could help recruit.
Maybe she could.
Of course, we have to know that she was be willing to serve.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'd have to be sure that she wanted to do it.
So we have a motion to appoint John Cooper to the Patriotic Holiday Committee. And that, the other alternative would be not to vote that and to vote Barbara Percha. But we have a motion, so all those in favor of John Cooper for the what's the motion again for, when is it?
Patriotic Holiday Committee through June 3rd. It's through June 30th of this coming year, so.
of 19?
6 months, yeah.
Okay, that's the request to vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those against?
No, I would go with Barbara,
Okay, the vote is 3 to 1
3 to 1.
You know,
for Mr. Cooper.
so there'll be like
We need
2
to.
meetings between now and the end of his term.
I will also contact Barbara and talk about the issue.
Yeah.
So now we have the Community Media Committee. We have Ms. McDonald, and John is already on here. Do I have a motion for something?
Well, Ms. McDonald was very enthusiastic and did sort of have a general understanding, I thought, of what it was that we were trying to talk about. I know that, you know, if we appointed her, we might still want to look for some other folks to supplement some of those ideas that got put into the charge this time around.
I thought, in all honesty, John was a little bit too laid back in his responses.
Well, you know, I appreciate people put their names forward because there's a
Yes.
need, so.
Absolutely.
But I thought of the two of them, Ms. McDonald was,
So do you want to make a motion?
sure, I'll move that the selectmen appoint Ying McDonald as a member of the Cable Television Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2021.
Second.
And a motion from Margot and second from Ed. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then the last one, we have Energy and Sustainability Committee, Emily Prince and William Sales.
Emily has just been so involved already. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't appoint her. She's been attending meetings and is already very invested. I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't. So I will move that the selectmen appoint Emily Prince as a member of the Energy and Sustainability Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Ed. Any other discussion?
Yeah, this is the second committee that Bill Sales has been, he was here for the planning board and here for this one, and he's lost out twice now. And I understand he may be asked to do the other piece, but I would really like to encourage, however we can do it, that he not get discouraged from coming in front of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, he's been in town for a very short period of time. And he's, as you said, he's applied twice to be on committees. I really do encourage people to attend the committee meetings and get involved, because I think that's where you make those connections and you build your ability even as a newcomer to participate. So maybe we can reach out to him and see if there's a committee that he's interested in and encourage him to participate just as a citizen at first, because there are always openings on a regular basis. People want to cycle off committees, and so I think that's essentially what Emily did. She started attending the Energy and Sustainability Committee meetings, so.
Right, no, I understand, but it's one of those things where you put your name in the hat and you're told nicely, thanks, but no thanks. And how many times do you dip your foot in the well? The other thing is we could find out if he's interested in the Cable TV Committee too.
Sure.
I mean, if we've got an opening.
Margaret,
Yeah,
with your experience, would you be willing to reach out to William and?
Sure, I'd be happy to, or if you would like to, I mean, if you want to follow up on Ed's suggestion, if you would want to reach out to him about the cable TV opening, since that's.
I'll do that, but why don't you talk to
Sure,
him
yeah, I'm
also
happy to talk to him.
separately?
Yeah, and also because I'm going to reach out to him about
The net zero.
participating in the net zero
Yeah,
thing.
that might
because
be a,
That's what I
That's a
meant.
short, it's also a short time gig, so if he likes it, then that can transition him into something, and if not, then it's just a couple of months.
So we have a motion to appoint Emily Prince to the Energy and Sustainability Committee. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried 4-0. I don't see any problem in starting on some of these sooner, so Ms. Stanton,
Sure. Excuse
have a whole bunch of perfunctory housekeeping before you tonight, items 108, 109, really 113 and 114, but to start off, 108 is a change of beneficial interest for Red Heat Tavern. All the paperwork is included. It's been fully vetted by the manager's office, the police department. The same can be said for 109, it's a change of manager, same process, fully vetted by the police department, internal. It just requires action by the selectmen this evening. No major changes, the police did not see any red flags, the manager's office didn't see any red flags, everything's been paid, everything's in line, strictly as always been.
This is a change in ownership in part?
Beneficial interest, yeah.
Right.
I can explain for one.
Yes, please come on down.
This is great. I mean, I ever saying, what the hell, this might be my easiest hearing ever, but basically.
Wait, would you give
My
your
name is
name?
Gregory DeMarcus, I represent the petition. Basically, we made a mistake in the application in 2014. This is a chain of 20 restaurants throughout the United States. There's 5 Red Heat Taverns, there's 15 Burton's Grills, and there's 11 of them in Massachusetts. And the single member on all of the licensees is supposed to be Burton's Grill LLC. What we noticed is that inadvertently, we didn't put Burton's Grill membership, LLC as the member. We put the members of Burton's Grill LLC as the members of the licensee. And so we called Ralph Sacramone, he's the executive director of the ABCC, and he says the way to correct it is to appear in front of the board. Now, there's no changes, there's nothing.
So nobody really is changing ownership
Nothing,
here?
there's no money.
This is a paperwork thing?
It's just, we apologize, we made a mistake, and we're correcting it. And the operation's gonna stay the same. I don't know how you're familiar with it, with the restaurant, but it's a very well-run restaurant, and they do a good job. And there's nothing, it's just correcting a mistake for which we apologize.
Any other questions, concerns?
The restaurant's been a great corporate citizen. It seems like every time I turn around, they're supporting local activities and causes.
Oh, good. Good, thank you.
So I'll move the selectmen approve the change in beneficial interest license application for Red Heat Tavern of Bedford LLC located at 150 Great Road, Bedford, Massachusetts.
I have a second from Mike. No other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 4-0.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So additionally, before you are 2 change of managers for the Flatbread Company and Camellos. Both have been filtered, as I said, through the police department. They do not have any objection to anything before it. Everything has been sent in advance to the ABCC to confirm things are fine.
It was I just had a question about the police letter of Camellas. It was almost like there was a cut and paste or something. There's references to people that I didn't see in the application.
I'm not sure. Let me see.
Yeah. Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah,
Who is he?
I don't know. I couldn't figure that out.
I think he's in the other letter too. It's like, wow.
Probably a cut and paste from the police.
Well, I'm sure it's fine. Just wanted to make sure it didn't slip through.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
probably should be corrected.
Yeah, it's the Miss Lacy that's throwing things off.
Yeah,
Yep. We can update that.
good.
So is this probably 2 separate motions?
Yep.
Move selectmen to appoint Lacey Thompson as manager at 158 Camellos Bedford Marketplace LLC, doing business as Camellos at 158 The Great Road.
Second.
No other discussion. The motion is made. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion's carried 4-0. Another motion?
Move selectmen to appoint Stephanie Jello as manager of Flatbread Bedford, Inc., doing business as a flatbread company located at 213 Burlington Road in Bedford.
Second.
A motion from Mike, a second from Ed. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion's carried 4-0. Next item on our agenda is capital expenditures, but I wonder, it being a half an hour early, whether we shouldn't wait.
If you want, we can go through the other sort of miscellaneous.
Why don't we
items.
do that, not to keep you here all evening, but in case somebody wants to hear it at 8 o'clock.
So items 112, 113, and 114 are a bit more perfunctory. So if you look to item 112, the ethics test for election and seasonal workers, this was actually brought to, I think, some of your attention back in 2015 when it was initially brought to the previous town manager Reed. As you know, a public employer can choose to exempt out certain employees based on sort of the scope of their work to not add an undue burden. The range of those employees can be poll workers, non-supervisory seasonal employees, participants in the senior tax work-off program, high school students. So the recommendation in consultation with both the HR director, the secretary of state, and the town clerk is to exempt these employees so that we don't have essentially election day workers who are, they work twice a year, they handle no cash, they're sort of in a very specific role for that day to be exempted from this process. Legal counsel didn't have any concerns with this, neither did the town clerk. So it would be a motion to exempt the positions as presented.
Any thoughts, positive or negative, about the issue? Hearing none, would somebody care to make a motion?
Move that selectmen exempt the positions presented in the December 10, 2018 memorandum from Town Manager Stanton from the distribution of the conflict of interest law and online training requirements.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The
Motion's
next
carried.
item before you for under miscellaneous action items is our reimbursement for our Chapter 90 funds. This is money that has already been expended and the town is looking for reimbursement on. As you know, it's like almost a 6-month cycle from when the town completes the work to application period. This has been preliminarily reviewed by Mass DOT and the Department of Public Works for submittal. There's nothing unusual on here. It's work that has been completed and was part of the larger transportation and roadway improvement program. We expect to receive that reimbursement in the next 3 months.
Just to confirm, work has to have been done and the town pays for it up front,
Exactly right.
and then it's reimbursement.
Yep, it has to be deemed substantially complete. And all of this work has, which is why there's some delay on the reimbursement cycle.
Any comments or
Just a
concerns?
question on, in reading this.
Yeah?
So on this first project, whatever it is, Old Burlington Road and Wilson Mill, if I read this, so the 187.2 is what it was approved for?
Mm-hmm.
We spent 184.7,
Yep.
which this 4,600 is included in the 184, and this is it. So we didn't spend more than what was
Exactly.
requested.
So we could have spent more, but not all funds are available for reimbursement. So there are very specific parameters around Chapter 90. Certain sidewalks aren't included, certain intersection improvements aren't included. Protected bike lanes, not that this provides, would not be included. So we did spend under, but also it's important to keep in mind that not everything is Chapter 90 eligible.
Right. Would that show up in this?
No, it would not.
It would not.
This is items
Strictly
that are
what
Chapter
is
90 eligible.
what is
So you would
going
not.
to be reimbursed?
Exactly. So say a project was $1 million and only 100,000 was eligible for Chapter 90. Mass DOT does not want to see the entire project scope, just the items under consideration for reimbursement. Very similar to the MSBA process for schools. You know, turf is not available for reimbursement, landscaping improvements, public pools. You never submit that in your application to the MSBA, you just submit with what's applicable.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So is there a motion for Chapter 90 reimbursement?
I move selectmen approve the Chapter 90 reimbursement requests for a total of $854,645.57 as outlined in Town Engineer Adrian St. John's memo of December 10th.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the $854,600 plus for Chapter 90 reimbursement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried 4-0-0.
So Lauren's going to be filtering that application, which requires your signature for approval. Next before you is another, much like last meeting, Chapter 268A, Section 20B exemption for employees. Brendan Coyne, Audrey Ferguson, Bernie Meyer, Samantha Plumley, and Alphonse Throthku, many of which are basketball referees. So looking for an approval for these employees to be exempted.
Move the selectmen approve a waiver under Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, for Alphonse Taparutu, Brendan Coyne, Veronique Meyer, Audrey Ferguson, Samantha Plumley.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried 4-0-0.
You have several sets of minutes, both executive session and regular session from the December 3rd and December 8th retreat. The minutes are before you for review.
So we will start with the minutes of December 3rd executive session, unless,
There's just a mistake on the vote.
yes, I agree with you, I found the same mistake. And that is that I didn't abstain, I voted no.
Otherwise, it looked fine.
I have a couple that I think we can talk about in open session. The motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation, I think it has to be worded strategy for litigation under the open meeting law. Also, 3 paragraphs up from the bottom is reference to a Superior Court decision. I think it's specific. I think it was the Superior Court decision.
And one other minor correction on page 2, in the paragraph that starts, right after the town manager Stanton provided, rather than say the building, I would say its building, because it isn't clear to me, at least when I read it the first time.
Here. So it's instead of the.
Any other corrections, additions, deletions to the executive minutes of December 3?
I move the selectmen approve the executive session minutes for Monday, December 3rd as amended.
Second.
Got a second from Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried 4-0-0 as amended. The minutes of Monday, December 3rd for the regular session.
Couple of things. First page, second line at the end, under the first item, north into Billerica at the Manning Road intersection. I think the preposition is to the Manning Road intersection. I think that's the termination of the project.
I apologize. Is that the first paragraph that you're speaking of?
First paragraph, end of second line.
Oh, okay. And
This-
it should be where, I'm sorry?
North into Billerica to the Manning Road intersection.
To the what road? To the...
Instead of at, to.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down, the Charter Review Committee is being requested for creation as part. I want that to read, a Charter Review Committee will be appointed as part of the 5-year cycle. I don't think we have any option. Down near the bottom, when Margot was talking about the new development at Bedford Woods, is that the right number, 130?
I'm not clear on that, actually, and I don't think I said 130 because I didn't think.
I thought it was 100.
I thought 130 was the right number.
Okay.
Okay,
You can confirm.
that's fine, that would be great.
The very bottom of that page, Restoration Advisory Board meeting said that the ground floor contaminants, I hope that what I said was the groundwater contaminants. And that's it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just on the page 5, where I was reporting out, it was the Conservation Commission, not the Planning Board. The Planning Board was also hearing that too, but that wasn't what I was reporting on.
Any other comments, additions, corrections, deletions? If not, would somebody care to move?
Move approve regular session minutes December 3, 2018 as amended.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried 4-0-0. Next item is the Saturday, December 8th executive session. I have a comment, sort of editorial. I think all motions have to be done individually, so the last line needs to say individually, and each
Our
person
names, yeah.
mentioned and their vote to so do. The vote is correct, but it needs to be called out individually. Any other comments about that? I will accept the motion then.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve the executive session minutes of Saturday, December 8th, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion to approve them as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried 4-0. And finally, we have the regular session minutes of Saturday, December 8th. I have one grammatical edit on the first page, and that is in the second paragraph, since it starts out by saying the ranking was completed, then the next line, I think, should say priorities were determined by the number of times an item was consensus voted, just to please my editorial sense. And again, on page 3 at the top, the motion to enter into executive session should be voted individually. And then, because the motion to adjourn is in the minutes for the executive session, that next line that says Mr. Rosenberg moved to adjourn, that entire sentence should be deleted from here. Any other questions, concerns, additions?
But he, on the executive session,
Hmm?
he voted to return to regular session.
But that happened in executive
In-
session. It's captured in the executive session minutes.
It's in the previous minutes.
That motion was made in executive session, is in the executive session minutes that we just approved.
Right, but it was to return, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Within the executive.
So
So
to
which one-
adjourn, so if you look at the prior minutes that we just approved, it says it's a motion both to adjourn and to return. You did both at the same time.
You're looking at the wrong minutes to understand what you just said.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
The motion is made in the executive session and recorded there. It should not be recorded
The exact
here.
same words are in the minutes that we just approved from the executive session, and that's where they belong.
Trust us.
I'm looking right at them.
I see. It's further up than I was looking.
Okay.
Just give me 400. Somebody make a motion.
I move that the selectmen approve the minutes of Saturday, December 8th as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion is carried 4-0. I know that we're expecting members of the Capital Expenditures Committee to be here, and they still.
Are they all here?
Are they all here? I don't.
Those that said they would be here.
The ones that said they were, then I don't see any reason not to proceed.
I would agree.
So, why don't you come down, sir? Thank you. Is that mine or yours? Oh,
Is this,
This is the original? Shouldn't be, it's got your name on it, I got the number on the
oh,
top.
I signed the wrong set. I caught myself in time.
Is Beth Russ going to be here? Yes. Oh, okay. So I was going to say we can get Fran out of here, but we'll wait for him.
Let's get ourselves settled here for a moment.
So just to
give a quick overview, the Capital Expenditure Committee has completed their recommendations after a series of meetings through the summer and fall. The recommendation was in conjunction with Finance Committee in terms of determining the sort of dollar threshold that we'd be looking at, even though, as we all know, the Capital Committee is not supposed to be looking at money, strictly it's the merit of projects. So before you tonight, Attorney Taggart, who's the chair of the committee, Mike Rosen, who's been staffing the committee throughout the summer and fall. We've asked them to do a quite brief presentation so that we can allow room for questions if there are on the project scope. The increase is before you and the backup materials relating to the presentation. I know Tony and Mike would be happy to answer any questions after their brief presentation.
And I guess so that the members of the committee also introduce themselves that are part of the committee.
Steve Steele, John Carbone.
All right. And Bill Newman.
Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself, even though I know who you are?
So Antonio Battaglia, 12 Battle Flag Road in Bedford, and chair of the Capital Expenditure.
And I'm Mike Rosen, I'm the assistant town manager, and I staff the CapEx committee.
So Michael is going to assist me here with the PowerPoint presentation that we have, and he also has some familiarity with projects in addition to the other members here, so when it's time for questions, So essentially we begin the process in the beginning of the summer where we have summaries by each department that present the FY21 to FY25 capital plans. Those are the 5 years that we don't necessarily vote on during that process, but review and vote at the end of our process, which then includes the FY20 projects. So we try to get the 5 years out, 5 future years out, and then we'll work on the FY20 or the current year plans coming up starting in September. In addition, each member of the Capital Expenditure Committee is a liaison for each of the different departments and makes visual observations, discussions, reviews the presentation that the department is going to present on the FY20 plan, and that takes place during the September to November timeframe. They also are able to describe what they saw and other discussions that they had with the department head during that department head's presentation. And those presentations take place, as I said, from September to November. In addition to their presentations, they all provide a 10-point questionnaire that we have that describes the reasonableness behind the plan, behind the project, whether it's shovel-ready, if there's any maintenance costs associated with any savings that might come from it. And then if there's questions that take place that we have during the presentation that can't be answered, we then have the department heads come back with clarifications to their questions. At the end of the November timeframe, we also meet with CPC to discuss their position on the CPA funded request. It's our understanding that technically these do not get selected and voted on, I guess, until the January 17th, I think, is the day for this particular number of projects. So we can go to the next slide.
Well, Tony, if I can, just before we move on to the next slide, something that's actually not captured on this slide, but shows the dedication of the staff that works on this plan as well, is that actually almost right after town meeting ends in March, April timeframe, we begin at the staff level having weekly capital staff meetings starting in May. So by the time that we go to CapEx in June, July, we're already got an organized plan going. So that's just kudos to the staff for helping me out with that, the department heads especially.
They do put a tremendous amount of work into what they present, and they're very detailed in their presentations. That they don't gloss over it. They do a wonderful job at really trying to provide the information for us. And Michael does a good job working with them to make that happen. So in December, the members rate each of the projects, each of the requests on a 0 to 3 rating. 0 being most important to that Capital Expenditure Committee member as being approved, and 3 least important. We then review the ratings.
Actually, if I can correct you, isn't 3 mean you don't want it done at all?
Not to be funded in this fiscal
It's
year.
not to be funded in this fiscal year.
That's right, not at all, but
Pushed
not-
off- Yeah,
not
pushed off
this
to the
year.
following year. So you're right, there is more to it than just at least,
It's a 4-point scale.
Not now is the answer.
yeah, not now. So we then review this as a group. I believe you all have the long sheet, which also includes standard deviations. So we review each of the projects based on their rating as well as the standard deviations. We then discuss and do a revote on those that we feel that should be rejected, postponed, or removed. In this particular plan, there's one that we recommended to be postponed or removed, and we'll go through that in a moment. We then focus on those projects that are 2 or higher to see if there's any further clarifications that we could get from the department heads to give us a different set of opinions, if there's more information that needs to be discussed, to make sure that our vote is in fact a correct vote in our minds. And then what you have here tonight is the rankings that we submit based upon the Capital Expenditure Committee's voting on those projects. So there are 45 projects in total for FY20. One project was recommended to be removed, and the 44 projects in total represent $16,739,297. And the sources of those projects are listed as such. Those that are capital articles, there's 26. They represent $2,253,604. And the next column over illustrates what was approved in FY19 for each one of these funding sources. So you can see FY19 was $2,294,181. So relatively close in the capital article from year to year. Those that were bonded are 9. It was $8,682,784. FY19 represented $13,217,332.
Because of the Davis School, majority of that, the Davis School construction project.
Water and sewer rates, there are 5. $1,829,266. FY19, $1,610,380. The CPA projects, there were 3. $2,103,644. Last year was $589,828. And when we go through the projects, we'll show you what was the jump that caused that to occur. And then the operating budget, Chapter 90, there's one project, $1,869,999 versus last year, $1,831,431. So, of the projects that we have here, one that was recommended not to move forward was with Springbrook's Park Clarity Filtration System. It was an $80,000 project. There was quite a bit of discussion over it, and actually some confusion too, because it was 4 straight years at $80,000, and we didn't know whether it was more of a maintenance project or if it was really a capital project. Since the project last year was similar to this on the capital expenditure plan, and that project was approved to move forward with last year to see if the filtration system would work. So there seemed to be some debate, and I believe in the end, the department decided to not have the project on this year's list as well. So even though we voted as such, they decided as such as well. And I'm going to clarify that.
Yeah, so I mean, there were 2 projects that were technically sort of removed or postponed. One was related to fencing, which the DPW has decided to delay and do some further research on. The same as with Springbrook Park. So the hold was moving forward as a pilot year. It was never intended to be 4 years of the $80,000 water filtration. It was on the list because the selectmen were having a larger conversation about Springbrook, so it was held. But both were pulled in conjunction with capital by the committee.
There was actually one other that I don't know if it's as part of this, it's not part of the discussion per se, but there was a pickleball court.
Which I've pulled and have gathered all department heads together to come up with a better alternative for a pilot program so that no additional funding would need to be requested. So we have in theory, a good faith effort with the athletic director at the high school, the athletic director for the district to be able to use courts on a part-time basis with some striping paid for by DPW.
A few projects that I think I just want to highlight for you, and it really is those that are more than had a rating of two or more, close to two or more. And one was the bus shelters, which ended up having, we came back with a presentation, and we felt by the Department, it was the Department of Health that made that presentation. And there was much more credence as to what they were actually trying to get achieved this year, being 3 shelters spread throughout the town, and two shelters spread throughout in 2 different locations in town, which would not have a lot of issues and permits and what have you to get them built. The Fawn Lake improvements, which is a $1.8 million, which has a impact on last year's CPA funding versus this year. There was a lot of discussion over whether it really would achieve the objectives and worth spending the $1.8 million. So that's why the ranking was pretty low by the committee, and really didn't have that much of a standard deviation associated with it. But nonetheless, it was rated as such. And then there's a large equipment replacement sweeper that seemed to have a lot of discussion and a lot of concern over whether we really needed it at this point in time. There was discussion that there could be some labor savings by having this sweeper purchased, because there's leaf extraction that can take place as part of it versus having someone be following behind the current sweeper to do the leaf extraction.
For the benefit of the other selectmen, would you give a quick description of what the sweeper looks like?
Yeah, so there's a new street sweeper. It's smaller, more condensed. Not only can it pick up sort of like the debris and move around and suck up the debris, but it can also take leaves, which the current street sweeper cannot. The benefit of this is that you wouldn't have to have the vehicle directly behind it with I'm sorry that I'm doing robot arm movements, but there's no other way to describe it, with the hose that goes back into a truck. So the idea would be there'd be labor savings associated with sort of a more Vector-like approach to street sweeping versus the more old school style approach where you can't suck up leaves, which is great for the fall. But there wasn't a huge interest in it.
Thank you.
And one final project that there was some discussion on, and we ended up having a very detailed presentation, which was over the school infotech plan. And really, it wasn't as much as we did not view that it wasn't important to have the tech equipment in the schools as much as it was just all lumped together as one big purchase item, as well as a feeling by the committee that some of it is actually more maintenance than it is, than it would be a capital type of item. And there was discussion over whether it really should go back as a maintenance type, primarily the laptops and desktops versus the wireless equipment and server infrastructure. Those types of costs we all felt definitely were capital, but some of the committee felt that the remainder of the expenditures were more of a maintenance type issue. But the presentation was very strong, and as long as it, as it being a capital item, it was felt that it should move forward, and as a total. So those were the sort of the key ones that I thought, as they were on lower in the list, why were they there as part of that ranking, that I could give you some flavor from the committee as to why. I would welcome any of the other 2 committee members here if there's any other thoughts that you have to describe about any projects. So I would open it up to any questions that you may have at this point in time.
as a selectman, but also as a member of the committee, I want to thank the committee for its very, very hard work. You guys are absolutely almost bothersome in having such regular meetings starting in the middle of the summer. And it's great work that you do. And also the other thing I'd comment about is this entire process has moved from being when I first joined the committee, where town staff would throw stuff on the wall and see what would stick. We're moving to a far more logical way of doing this. There's legitimate planning going on, and I think the sense of everybody who serves on this committee is that we're dealing with real requests that are not just arbitrary and being done. And I know that the town staff, and I thank them for doing this, do a lot of trading off amongst themselves to get to these references. What we're seeing is, gee, I'm willing to hold off 1 year on my project in order to accommodate you so that we can end up with a reasonable and fairly constant bottom line request and not end up with, you know, huge cyclical things. So thank you for all that you do, volunteers. I obviously don't have any questions because I've sat through all of this.
Last year we had some, at the end of near the end of the cycle, we had some discussion about a line item that I think was dropped because of the confusion about fencing around Saburn Field and the tennis court rehab. And it looks like, has that been reincorporated into the line that says Town School Recreational Grounds Rehab?
No.
No, that's a separate, so that was actually another project that was referenced earlier. Tony had mentioned that it was originally requested on this 6-year plan for fiscal '20, but DPW staff and the committee agreed. I think we decided to just withdraw that project for fiscal year '20 and come back with a better fleshed out project in the future year.
That includes the repairs to the tennis courts?
That's correct. It's the fencing and also I think it was the court itself as well.
There's some more homework to be done.
Part of that, well, I was going to say, part of the reason they was willing to withdraw is because the original request was to replace everything, and there was...
It wasn't separated.
And there was every piece of fencing, and there was discussion that really the world wasn't that dire, that there were large pieces of the fencing that were quite adequate, and that, yes, there were sections that need to be replaced, but no need to ask for as large amount of money, so they wanted to go back and do a careful analysis of where changes need to be made and put a price on that only.
He's going to do some updates in his existing budget to the areas of fencing that we consider dangerous or a hazard. I know I've walked the fencing. I think Joanne has also walked the fencing just to see. But yeah, the idea is to use internal funds at this point to be able to do some of the minor upgrades and come up with a larger plan of what that looks like.
And if I may, just one of the questions that came up was how much was the maintenance for 2018? DPW only spent $5,000 on maintenance for the entire fencing for this year versus almost a $300,000 spend. So
Oh, yeah.
that sort of influenced us to say we need to pull this back again.
I was actually more interested in the tennis
Not
court.
that it comes into play in decision-making in capital, but if it did.
I think the project that you were referencing pertains to Page Field.
It was called athletic field fencing last year is what it was.
Right, but there was another, he was asking about some improvements too.
That's what Page Field, that's the work to the backstop, the dugout in the field itself on Page Field.
The backstop and the dugout
Pagefield.
on Page. I think some netting so the neighbor doesn't get inundated by foul balls.
That used to be an honor. Do you happen to have any notes on the details of the hardscape improvements for the next fiscal year?
number of ownership, affordable housing ownership units that I've come before you in a very similar kind of agenda. This is a very standard program set of materials. The marketing is a little bit different in each one, but the regulatory agreement, the application describes the units, the local support, which you're well aware of the local support for this particular development. And then just in terms of going forward with ownership units, the next ones coming would be the Village at Bedford Woods, just to talk briefly about those, but those are not the LIP LAU, and they're not going to be here tonight, but just so that you could sort of see what the Bedford ownership units are in the active horizon. So I wasn't going to go through any particulars here unless you would like to.
Good, Margaret.
I have a typo and a question. Sure. The typo is that our new town manager is appropriately listed, but it has our old town manager's email address. So I don't know if anyone else caught that.
Send it to her,
Thank you.
it's fine.
Okay.
Very good.
I guess if that's a,
Thank you. Yep.
that's a dead end, people
Yep.
send it. The question that I have, and I think I ask this question every time you come with one of these, because first of all, I want to remind myself and I want to remind other people. When an individual applies to be part of a lottery and they are not selected, is there a process by which they are invited or have the opportunity to participate in a subsequent lottery? So I could think it was Evergreen Terrace or
Meadows.
Meadows was our last opportunity. We had probably a group of people who filled out all the paperwork. I know that some of that paperwork is time sensitive and has to be refreshed potentially. But do you reach out to people who failed in a prior lottery and invite them to apply to the next one?
So we have a list of maybe 300 or 400 people who have indicated interest in all the lotteries and have participated in the different ones in different towns, and they are notified for every opportunity.
Okay. So the folks who didn't make it into, or weren't chosen for a prior lottery will get some sort of notification that this one's coming up. Right.
Are all these units in the existing housing that was there, or?
2 and 2.
So 2 in the existing and 2 to be in the new ones?
Yes, exactly.
And what is the status of the new ones?
Well, we're doing the preliminary work and breaking ground any day now. So I think we're looking at the demo of the damaged units to happen right after the first of the year. And if the weather allows us, we'll get some lumber going up in first week of February.
And if everything went absolutely perfectly, when would you hope the whole project would be done?
If it went perfectly, probably 18 months. Right, I think what's sort of nice about the program we have here is I have 2 units that'll be ready, as soon as we're ready to go to be sold off. And the units that I'm building, new construction that are designated to be affordable, are sort of in the front of the project. So they'll come sooner rather than later.
And when you started this project, I recall that you were renting units and not selling them.
That's correct.
Are you already in the selling mode? I've lost track of where we are.
So we've closed 4 with a 5th one closing this week. And then what we did was some of the units that we leased, the leases ran out and the people moved because I planned it that way so the construction around it wouldn't be interfering with people's lives. So
The vacancies are being worked on.
yeah. So the last rental burns off in August, and then it'll be all for sale.
Thank you for the update.
Are you getting, Liz or Fran, are you getting inquiries about these opportunities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's on people's radar?
Absolutely. I think that we would be filing with DHCD probably the next week or so, and then hopefully they'll do a quick turnaround. So I think that marketing would start in February and looking for a spring lottery. So just in terms of when would that actually happen, and once we open the application period, that's when really the advertisements and the local outreach would hit.
I'd like to add, we're going to start marketing new construction units probably the 3rd week of January.
we'll have a sales office open and a full-time staff.
No. Thanks for all you're doing, making this possible.
If I could, is the, on the price range, I thought I read somewhere it's, for all 4 units, it's 209?
Yep.
And just in the flyer, it says 214 to 127?
Oh, thank you. I'll update that. We did go back and forth with the prices, yes. And actually, these prices will, I'm sure will get adjusted before marketing
By the
starts.
formula.
Yeah.
They pick up the current interest rate just before marketing starts, and it's right around the time when the new income limits come out.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we'll go through and make sure that all the materials are up to date, but thank you for catching that.
Other questions, concerns? We need a motion for a local initiative program. Do we have the motion somewhere?
Well, I suppose I could say that move to the selectmen to approve this.
Approve and sign.
And sign, and authorize the chair to sign the local initiative program application for the Pine Hill Crossing development.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion is carried, 400. You're on your way.
I'd like to add a huge thank you to the board, the great support, not only this board, but all the boards in town and the staff. It's been a good experience for me as a developer, and not a lot, I use the town of Bedford as an example when I talk to people about trying to find other pocket community opportunities for housing, that modest priced housing. So, once again, thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank
everything
you.
did.
We're
Thank
thrilled
you
to
for
see
stepping
this neighborhood get built.
Oh, yeah, I'll be out there for the next 18 months.
I'll see you when I walk my dog, I'll wave.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
That's one of those good news stories.
So, through the miracle of modern science,
Oh my gosh, look at us.
we are
We're
ahead of
If we
time.
start at 6 o'clock every week, we'll be out early.
Whatever happened to
dig
that?
that.
Weren't we talking?
So,
Earlier
Talking about
starts?
what?
Earlier
starting at
starts.
6?
Really?
Sorry.
Ms. Stanton, the floor is yours.
Sure, so just a couple updates. As of this writing, the Navy hangar is at $8,820,000. The clock has been reset. It was again at the 23rd hour, and another bidder comes in with some cash. It seems to be going up in $10,000 increments, so that's
It'll be a long
Three
process.
bidders?
3 bidders that keep,
They're taking turns?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Can a new bidder enter?
At this point, sure, yeah, it's still open.
Okay, so it's open to everybody.
Yep. Stays open for as long as people keep bidding in $10,000 increments. So I have no further update on that. Every time I meet and put this on the agenda, I assume I'm gonna say that's it. And then every week at the last hour, someone comes in, so I wanted to update everyone on that. Enclosed in your packets, you did see some material, not for discussion tonight, but for a further agenda item in large scale format for the dog park. So if you have questions or are looking for additional information, I'm happy to assemble or look. Also, just a couple sort of action items. You were supposed to have the Middlesex Turnpike order of taking before you tonight. The wheels of state government are moving a bit slow. We're hoping to have all signatures by the end of the week with the goal of a January 7th approval. Rick Reed is going to Australia for a month, so he is sincerely hoping that we have everything for January 7th and we can move on. Additionally, the housing study was supposed to be before you this evening, but there were still further comments coming in from selectmen. If you have comments, the sooner that you can get them to me and I can forward them to Liz in a consolidated manner, the better, so that we can have it on for a late January agenda item. And then lastly, Bill asked me to do just a quick update on where we're at in terms of budget guidelines. I was before the FinCom last week to talk about sort of 2.5% and what that looks like for the town. There are some major cost drivers this year that I am working through with Victor. One being a $113,000 increase to refuse and recycling, a roughly $60,000 increase related to a 52.4 versus 52.2 week year, and then a $30,000 increase in energy for the DPW. This is making it a little bit challenging to meet 2.5% out of the gate. This is where I'm deeply thankful that I have a background in finance and budgeting, because I spent much of the weekend trying to find Bedford's hidden money. Come to find out there's not any. Everything's very clearly accounted for. Which is great. So I presented sort of to FinCom. This is my first blush. I'm a little bit anxious about what this looks like. I think there's still some opportunities to work through. But those are some major cost drivers. We also don't have a great deal of vacancy right now, and much of the way that the town has been able to sort of move things around in the budget and meet the guideline has been because there's been a baseline of vacancies in different departments. We're robustly staffed right now, so that's making it a little bit more challenging. So this is very preliminary. I have no asks. I'm starting my light campaign for more money already with FinCom. But it's a preliminary out of the gate. Here are some of our major cost drivers, and this is what that looks like.
So it's just a function of what day of the week the payroll falls on?
Yeah, exactly. So because it's like an extra day this year, and the way that it falls, we have a 52.4 versus a 52.2. You would think that that would not be that significant, but it does impact hourly employees, many of which are at the police department, the fire department, and public works. And so in total, that equals $58,000 in costs that I can do nothing about.
So this must cycle around, what, every fourth year?
Exactly. Yep. And the school department's grappling with the same thing. So what I have tried to do out of the gate is to separate that amount of money to be able to explain to both the selectmen and to the FinCom, okay, refuse and recycling is this much, the 52.4 is this much, just to sort of look at what those cost drivers are. Because as it is right now, there's no new and expanded, there's no new and expanded programming, there's no additional hires, and I think I'm at 3.4%, just based solely on these items.
Should we reconsider the decision on refuse and recycling?
No, I still think there's an opportunity to work some of this through. I also think if there was to be a reconsideration of refuse and recycling, it would have a profound impact on the service delivery for Bedford. So the major cost driver beyond the China sword, and if anyone watched 60 Minutes last night, there was a great explanation of recycling costs in our country.
I should have watched that instead of the Patriots.
Well, it was after. You depressed and then more depressed. Bedford is same-day trash pickup, and there are very few companies that want to invest in that level of capital. So unless there was an appetite, which I don't think that there is, and we are midstream in negotiating, I think we knew this cost was coming from what I can tell from historical records. It's sort of when it was coming and how large it was going to be. In the scheme of refuse and recycling, it's not, gratuitous an increase, but it is an increase, and that does have an impact. So I'm still beating numbers down. This is a first blush, but I did sort of do a sort of overview to FinCom saying, here are some of the areas that I'm seeing that are a little bit large, and we'll go from there.
Anything else?
No. Oh, yes. The town employees' Christmas breakfast is Thursday morning at 9:30, 9?
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. I'm tired. It's a Wednesday morning at 9. So if the selectmen would like, there is information in your packet, but if you'd like to come by, I think everyone would be glad to see all of you. Margot is leading the charge with Caroline and Kathy Cortez to evaluate, rank, vote on all the different judge on all of the office decorations for holiday. It's become quite a heated competition. It seems like morale is quite high. The fire department is taking it extremely seriously, as is facilities. So I think it's a good sign. We have 78 employees come to the holiday breakfast, so for those interested, it should be a nice morning.
Where is it?
The Rick Reed multipurpose room.
Good, because the schools probably would charge us.
Free space.
Wow.
You also have copies updated of future agendas coming your way, so we'll have some updates to that, but just to give you an idea of what's coming down the line.
Margot?
First, I wanted to ask, I received in my packet an original. I wanted to make sure everyone else got copies of a memo from Barbara Doyle from Carlton Willard. Did everyone
Yes.
get that? Okay, just checking. So I imagine this got forwarded to DPW as well. Okay, perfect.
There was some very thoughtful ideas in it.
Yes.
So then my major liaison report is from the ZBA. I attended the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting last Thursday where they were grappling with the 40B amendment that I think I shared with you when we were last together. And Liz just mentioned the Albion Road, Bedford
Bedford Woods.
Woods project. So The major portion of the discussion, which went on for about 2 hours, had to do with sort of procedurally how to handle this project because, just to refresh your memory, it was permitted in 2004. The permit was exercised. One building was completed, but 2 buildings were not. There was the death of the original owner. I believe there may have been bankruptcy and estate and litigation, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's a new owner wishing to come back and build the other 2 buildings of that project, but change on the interior, the configuration of the units. So on advice of town council, because it was a little complex, in the earlier meeting in December, they had held off on having a public hearing. But I certainly went to the meeting last week anticipating that there would be a public hearing. But ultimately, after much deliberation and in the presence of our counsel who specializes in 40B, not Mr. DeLuca, but Karis North, what they chose to do was to open the public hearing and immediately make a finding that because we are above the 10% threshold of affordable housing for 40B, that they were denying the permit. So they did that, and then that sort of essentially stopped the public hearing without any presentation. So I'm not really sure where we are at this point. I don't know if the town manager has an update.
So because we're in a safe harbor, right, we're over the 10%, there are some sort of different parameters on how it's handled. The challenge is that there are so few, if not any, communities that have gone above the 10% and have grappled with this sort of previous amended or modified application. So I did have a call into Karis North, who's the legal counsel for 40B this weekend. She and I have a conference call set up tomorrow to sort of talk about next steps because the application does go to DHCD for their review. So I think we'll have more of an update probably by the end of the week, but it is a little bit of uncharted territory, and I think Karis has been very helpful in leading it, but there does need to be a bit of a meeting of the minds, I think, between myself, likely Chairman Moonen, the chair of the ZBA, and Karis to sort of walk through how do we avoid stepping in it, right, down the line, but also what is the likelihood that this is going to come before us again, how do we handle it from there? So I think I'll have a better idea after some more strategy with Karis.
And the other thing I just wanted to point out was, unfortunately, because of the procedure that unfolded, no member of the public was heard on it. And I know there are concerned, right? There are concerned abutters and other issues, but we also had planning board present with a memo that Jeff Cohen was prepared to present. I feel as though there's some bigger picture issues regarding the completion of that project, which has sort of been on our horizon. It's been accounted for in all of our school planning and everything. We anticipated that at very least that project was going to be completed as permitted. So we don't know necessarily what the next steps are going to be taken by the applicant about whether, what they will do now that the town has, through the ZBA, has taken this action to deny the change. They may just revert back to the original plan, or who knows. But nonetheless, I think it's important for us to be aware that the ZBA didn't have the opportunity to hear the input of the planning board or of the selectmen about what the value of the project is, unfortunately.
Which was deliberate. So if you open the public hearing,
Right.
It triggers a whole other
Exactly.
series relating to the application. And so per the advice of council, which was correct, when you don't open the hearing, it sort of stops that conversation from continuing while there's a pause. I think where there does need to be a greater conversation is sort of what does the submittal to DHCD look like? What does the town's response look like back? And then on the other level of that, you have the developers of the project. It's their first time doing a 40B. It's their first time going through a 40B process. So they themselves are challenged in sort of navigating the bureaucratic process related to this. So I'm hoping Karis has some more insight into how we go from here.
So it was a complicated and long meeting.
So that's all?
That's all.
Is
That's all.
that simple?
That's
Oh, well.
That was fine.
Michael?
One of the decisions made at our December 8th meeting that I was pushing was to try to be preemptive regarding the potential changes to the federally owned land on the north side of Hartwell Road. And to follow up with that, I'm trying to develop a memo that I'll run through the town manager of what I think the next step should be and who could be involved, particularly in terms of establishing what the government's timetable is for demolition, what would ensue after that, the current zoning of the property and the relationship between the hazardous waste and development of the property. There's a lot of moving parts. I just feel that if we don't try to stay ahead of it, we could be in a defensive posture, which we don't want, something of that magnitude. So I'll try to get that on your desk by the 1st of the year. That's it for me.
That's it? Ed?
Yeah, this goes to your point, I think, a couple of meetings ago, last meeting, about the dioxin near the community gardens.
Yeah.
Emily Hanscom is going to write a letter to the Conservation Commission. They didn't seem too troubled by the dioxin, so I'm not sure what that means for the Conservation Commission, which is the one that turned you down. They're also going to come back to the town because they want to put monitoring wells in there, and the access, they need a 20-year, or they're looking for a 20-year agreement, but they want to find some 20-year agreement that they can use as a template.
That's on our radar, they did reach out, so we
Did
said
they?
to do a little more homework and come in.
Oh, I thought the wells were already there.
There are the access to.
It's the access. The other thing that was interesting about this Albion Way is that apparently one of the guys on the Conservation Commission is a high-powered rifle shooter. And he said,
It does.
He said the rifle range for the high-powered rifles is like right in line with those units on Albion Way.
You mean the proposed?
The proposed units.
They have looked into that, so that did come out at the Bedford Housing Partnership meeting on sort of what the potential impacts would be of the gun range and the development. So I think that's something that they were hoping to have some conversations with the gun range, but also I'm not totally sure how you plan for high-powered rifles, except for avoid them. But it was part of a bigger conversation, at least at the BHP.
They described it as some kind of fencing
Yes,
thing that's
yeah.
there, and like, okay, a fencing thing. Can't you shoot over that fencing thing relatively easy? And where does the bullet land when it?
Yeah, there were a lot of questions about that, just in terms of its proximity to the range.
It's right next to it, isn't
Maybe we could get some federal money to build a wall.
it? A lot of that going around.
But anyway.
Is that it, Ed?
Yeah, and the only other is the planning board, because they did draft that. No, well, this is about the Albion Way, whether they should be part of that meeting, because they were drafting something for the ZBA. So anyway. That's it.
My turn, I guess. Last week, the FinCom heard the Springsbrook Park presentation that we heard on the previous Monday, and there was discussion at the Finance Committee meeting about the selectmen's role in deciding what the future of Springsbrook Park should look like, and coming to some consensus so that budgetary issues can be addressed, so that hiring issues can be addressed. And I've asked the town manager to put that on our agenda for one of the January meetings so that things could be done in a timely fashion. And I didn't want it on the same meeting where we were making budgetary decisions, because I'd like the Recreation Department to have a chance to fold whatever decisions we make into their budget request. So that will be coming down the road. I would also like to announce that I would like to re-up. I would like to serve the town again for another 3 years. There are several areas that I've been involved in, and I'd like to work them to a conclusion. I know that's true for everybody who serves as a select person. It never ends. There's always the next project, but these have been sort of part of my experience here for far more than 3 years, and I'd like to see them a conclusion. And I'd like to believe that I contribute to to where things go. So I'll come up with a more formal announcement, but I thought I should put it out there in the public that I am putting myself out there again. So thank you. Any other,
Whose turn is it to run the caucus this year? Is it?
It must be me, yeah. I think I'm the farthest from,
Yeah.
I was elected last year,
Yeah.
yeah, it's me. Okay.
you're furthest down the totem pole, without meaning anything.
Always such a joy.
untoward
No,
by
there's
that.
there's a binder with the script, so we'll be fine.
I can only get in trouble. Hearing nothing else from anybody, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I would move we adjourn.
A second? Somebody?
Second.
Can we get a second from Ed? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion is carried. We are adjourned.
Are you putting together a?